Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Magicians. So this is a very interesting episode. We pick up with the whole Quentin and Alice situation. Obviously, like I brought up last episode, she's going to make him look a little bit crazy, but obviously Quentin's kind of like keeping it a little tight-knit. He's not letting anyone know that the whole situation happened with Alice because I guess in his mind, if he tells anyone, they're just going to try and handle the situation like they handled the Charlie situation, like locking Charlie up in the wooden box. He doesn't want that, so he's keeping her in because she wants to get out. Because for her, she's like, I'm not going to go on a killing spree or anything like that. I have no interest in that. I just want to be free. I'm pure magic. Basically saying there's no way to bring Alice back because every bit of me that was Alice is burnt up when I went niffing. So this is all I am, and the fact that you're keeping me up, or like keeping me locked up. So stop ignoring me, you pussy. Even going as far as that. And I gotta give props to the actress who plays Alice too, because it's not like she's playing her like Alice. Like she's playing like almost a complete. It's like she's playing Alice, but as a completely different person. And you can obviously see the very distinct, like very big distinction because Alice was very timid and not very like loud spoken like that. Even when it came to anything and anybody. But now you have her being like, "Yo, asshole, let me out. I need to be free." But Quentin doesn't want to do that because he is hopeful that, Alice is there. The Niffin is there, so he does want to. It's no longer up. It's not like. Because last episode was all about kind of putting her soul to rest, mainly because he just didn't know if there was a means of bringing her back. But now he's like, she's stuck in the form of Niffin. She tried to bring Charlie back. Yes, it didn't necessarily work, but at least this way, I can pick up where she left off, especially because she got somewhat close. But I think it's also because he, legitimately he doesn't want to let her go. Like, because if he lets her out, there's no guarantee that someone else won't just come along and box her up, like hence like they did with Charlie. And he loves her too much just to let her go. He cares too much for her. So he's basically like, hey, just let me do what I gotta do and I won't mess with you too. Which you do see her popping up. She doesn't nearly mess with him as much as she could. But she does pop up, and so it's a situation where he finds himself trying not to talk to her because it's going to do is make him look crazy. Because to anyone else, it looks like he's just talking to himself. Because obviously she's sealed in his tattoo, so only he can see her. So, but like I said, like I don't understand why he wouldn't tell anyone else about this. It does seem like he's going to be dealing with that situation later on. Because there's a situation because basically she's like, okay, at the very least, if you're going to make me stay in your body, at least let me go out for a little while. Let me go on a test drive. I won't do anything bad. Which it's hard to say. I don't know. She says she won't go on a killing spree, but when it came to Charlie, Charlie immediately kind of attacked them when he had the opportunity. I think as a Niffin, you're just more like wanting to just absorb magic. So maybe like she might go on a spree where she tries to take everyone else's magic. I don't know. But it's gonna be interesting because I was wondering about that. It'd be kind of interesting if they had Niff and Alice on their side or something. It's like, oh, she did get free and they have to deal with that, or is she gonna spend the rest of the season locked up inside of Quentin? Because it's like this on top of everyone else's problems. Obviously, Julia is talking to those people to get her whole situation with the baby fixed, and obviously they're like, I don't know if they're sisters or partners, but they're kind of like, obviously they have their differences of opinions about how to handle this whole situation. One sister is all about an exorcism, while the other, I'll say sister, but one lady's all about exorcism, and the other lady is all about her other option being like, hey, kill the child because the child is super evil. So it's like we might as well kind of not beat around the bush, have to kill the mom too. That way you can make sure this whole situation is dealt with immediately. To the point she's sending out the lady, her friend, I know I didn't catch any names, but was basically like, oh yeah, she's basically sending out invisible goblins to kill you. Because it ended up killing the Hatzenbacks. And what they didn't bring up, the fact is, but that thing being dead is a bad thing because it means, it was the point of keeping it was to keep Reynard from finding them. But like I said, what's her name? Diane or Diana? Whichever one it was, the lady from last episode, the one who sent him away originally, she used her baby, her baby's birth to gather enough power to do it, which obviously there was like outside, ramifications for that, buildings burning, natural disasters kind of all happening at once just because it was just some like heavy duty magic that went down to do it. So, but the fact of the matter is, like I said, she went through the trouble of bringing up like, oh yeah, my he doesn't know who he is. He's very successful. Part of me wonders, what if we end up finding out that her son is actually, I can't remember his character's name, but Juliet's boyfriend from the first season. Well, if that's actually him, and obviously he didn't know and she didn't know. I mean, granted, he no longer knows about Julia, so that'd make things even more interesting because his memories got wiped last season. I wonder what happened to the rest of Morena's Hexenbeat. I'm not Hexen, of her hedge witches. I mean, I know most of them have been slaughtered by Reynard, but like, I guess even the ones we met last season, the few that like Julia got to know when she was with Morena, I guess even those are even those people are dead now. I'm assuming, especially when the hedge witch of the town is dead too, so that kind of puts that in perspective. But I brought up Diana like last episode because I'm like, I mean this time because I'm like, I brought it up last episode. I'm like, she's gonna spill the beans about Julia just so that Radar will in some sense spare her, but also to get back her. Like I thought that's what this whole situation with those creatures were. So obviously it seems like Reynard has never really been too concerned with them. He did the damage that he was going to do, so he's no longer concerned about it because it's like he's never come back for Julia. So that's why I'm thinking like he didn't know about the whole pregnancy situation. But nevertheless, I'm not getting to it. Obviously, the main overall element of this episode is basically performing a bank robbery for different reasons. Obviously, Penny wants to do it just because like, hey, I've wanted to always rob a bank anyway. Which I love the fact is that him and Katie, like the moment they saw each other, they went straight to vigorously making out and having sex. I mean, granted, they have not seen each other since the Mayakovsky episode of last season when they were doing their training when like she had to run like when she basically had to leave. So that's the last time they've seen each other. So then you have Elliot and Margot being behind it because they need money because Fillory is officially broke. Because it's like, oh, we got to spend money to fix the wellspring, and also, we got to deal with this whole war that Margot's got us in. And I love Elliot being like, can't we just kind of take it back? It's like, sir, it's pretty hard to take back a declaration of war. You can't just be like, oh, sorry, we were joking. You can't just take that back. Which Margot's like, yeah, screw that. We're not going to anyway. Which is like, Elliot just constantly wants to be like, Margot, please stop. You're not making this better. You're actually making it worse. So please stop. But she's kind of in the mood that she's in. Like I brought up last episode, I think it is more so just because she feels like she was used by him because she got with him under false pretenses because she was thinking like, oh, they didn't have any choice. It's like, oh, for the sake of their kingdom, she has to be with him. But it's like the whole thing was a lie. So it's like, screw you. So definitely interested to see how that worked out. And Q also wants to help them out because basically Julia and Katie came up with the idea of robbing a bank because they need the money for the operation. Because the lady is like, yeah, I need 1 million in like gold bricks. It's like people are stupid and have it in cold hard cash. That's how you get caught. So put it in the form of gold bricks and stuff like that. So now I mean, I don't know if I forgot. Like, gold is worth a lot, so it's like, because I was like, a million in gold bricks, that's a lot. But then I was like, no, like, it's not, because I guess in my head I'm thinking like I'm an idiot and thinking like each gold brick represents $1 million. It's like, no, I mean it's going to take a lot of gold bricks, sure, but I don't know what the going rate for gold is, like especially full-on bricks like that. But Q wants to help out, Julia, who's his best friend. It's just like he's like, I promise you I'll help with this whole Reynard situation, and I'm going to. I'm not going to back down from that. So hence the whole robbing the bank situation. I do love that the ringleader of this whole situation is Margot because she's the only one that has personal experience with robbing a bank, which she never went into detail about. I would have loved to hear that story, but nevertheless, it's like we hear her kind of being the plan master, and everything was going smoothly. I mean, mainly, well, there were a couple hitches in the plan. One big one being like what two of the security guards when the whole situation was being dealt with, they were coming in to exterminate the bugs that they brought in, which I love the way that looked, and just like bringing the bugs in, and then also like using magic to kind of siphon them back out through where they came in the opening. And then you have those two guards were too busy like having sex, and everyone was getting super late in this episode, right? Oh, not everyone, but still. They were doing their own thing, so they came back and they're like, "Oh man, we need to get rid of them." It's like, well, you have Elliot using this thing. It was almost like a little disco ball that it shut off all the lights, and then it started playing some music, and it kind of forced them to dance, and then the ball kept rolling, and it forced them to fall. I was like, that's pretty nice. I also love the fact is that, just because he can't really perform magic with his hands the way he is, Penny needed a what they consider a gravity belt to kind of keep himself afloat. Because the moment he touches the ground, obviously, which he did, it sucks up all the air out the room. Plus, it makes it impossible for him to travel out. But basically, Elliot, the buoyancy was kind of off on it, is how Penny put it. So it was impossible for him to get out of that particular situation. So he was stuck there. And I love, because of Elliot having his other version in Fillory, because of Elliot being in Fillory and this world, and he's asleep in Fillory, Penny was able to get to his dream in Fillory and talk to him in this world. And he just said, oh, that's so complicated. He's like, yeah, this happened because you screwed it. He's like, uh-oh, what's the problem? Well, I don't, he's talking to Kay, he's like, I don't know how to tell you this, but Penny fucked up. He's like, wait, what? I messed up. He's like, no, screw you. You're the one that messed up in this. So they had to go through the trouble of saving him. I also love the fact is that the teacher brings that up too. I need to learn that actress's name. I've seen her in so much stuff. She's a teacher that's talking to Henry earlier on and be like, yeah, we should let Julia stay here because that girl is fucked. It's like she is one of those teachers that her and Sunderland both talk very frank. But especially this particular teacher, because she's the one that was bringing up the fact is that she used to get high all the time and stuff like that. But also, like, I thought we were going to dive a little deeper into that. Henry's like, yeah, Julia can stay because me and her have a past. I'm like, right. The whole, like, Jane restarting time multiple times. So obviously, you kind of know Julia. Granted, she doesn't really know you in this particular timeline. But it's like, why didn't... I don't know. I would have loved to kind of know more about what he meant by that specifically. Like, I mean, maybe he didn't mean anything by it. I feel like there was more to that, but maybe he simply did mean the fact is, like, yeah, we've had to restart this time every 40. We've had to restart our time like 40 times. So, but they were able to get the Penny thanks to Nif and Alice because basically, like, because obviously, because I love that, like, Margot's explanation of, like, how the bank systems are run by magicians. Like, the top people are magicians, like the tellers and a lot of the clerks and people who work in the bank aren't. They're just regular people. But the top people who kind of run the banks are magicians, so there's powerful wards all across it, making it very hard to get in, obviously. But then you have this situation of, like, the room that Penny's trapped in is, like, obviously it's going to take a lot to, like, I almost completely forgot about the whole situation with the finger because basically they did the fingerprints. So Katie had to get the guy to put his finger in her mouth, and she was able to copy the finger onto her index finger. And Quentin was able to do the same thing, not by his mouth, because the lady shoved her finger up his ass. So that was interesting. And they're just like, Penny's just making fun of him. It's like, okay, champ, you earned it. Like, you had a pretty rough day, so go ahead and rest up. You earned it for that, so... But going back to it, it's like the keypad, obviously they don't have the password and they have to use magic to unlock it, but it's very complicated. So Nif and Alice is like, oh, I can help you with this situation. She's like, so let me drink your body out for an hour. We can even do a word is my bond type of situation so we can hash out the details. And Quentin's like, okay, we're in a hurry because, Penny's suffocating in there. So he makes a deal. He's like, okay, fine. You get 30 minutes. And then after that, it's like, we'll later on hash out the details so you can't try and screw me over later. She's like, fine. And once again, you forget, like, how complicated magic is in this show because it's literally equations and formulas that, like, Alice has written out. Like, it's like a massive ass formula. And you see Quentin there just standing there unlocking it. And you have Katie and Elliot looking at him like, what the hell is that? And he's just like, yeah, I was good at math. It's like once again, not telling anyone anything. And then all of a sudden, you have that battle magic person coming out. They're people not to be messed with because they're tough security. And then you have, like, every time they keep dying, and Julia gives them a 15-second restart. Obviously, it's very limited. At the beginning, they only have, I think, a total of 5. It's with the exception of one she used at the beginning. Each time one of them dies, like, at first she whips it, they all get electrocuted. Then another time, Penny's the one that gets killed. So they got on their last one, and Elliot gets hit by that thing, which... I love that whip. I hope she keeps that. That was amazing like that. Because Katie ended up getting it, and she used it on that goblin thing, that, like, electric whip thing. That was, like, so... It's like, psh, psh. I hope she kept that, because that looks pretty badass. But then you have Elliot dying, and then Q's the only one that's worried about it. He's like, "Whoa, what about this?" He's like, that's not even Elliot. That's still like a Clay thing." Which is like, did Katie know that? I don't think Katie knew that. I mean, more so than anything, it was to get to Julia because that one of the goblins was attacking. So I mean, granted, she doesn't have the connection to Q. I mean, to Elliot like Q does, because it's like Quentin's actually Elliot's friend, but for her, it's just, I don't really know Elliot, so I don't really give a crap about him. My real friend out there, Julia, needs help. So, which we do see. He's like, Penny's like, oh, he's okay. Doesn't worry. He's still in Fillory. But it does seem like that has ramifications because we see him kind of having a seizure or something in Fillory, and Finn's like calling for help. So that was even though that wasn't the real him, that was still his consciousness kind of added to that. So I guess when he died, it kind of maybe destroyed that part of his consciousness, or at the very least, that was kind of a reaction of his consciousnesses, kind of where they kind of had to coexist, are now kind of coming back together as one or something. I don't know. Hopefully, nothing bad happened to Elliot. This isn't the best time for Fillory if something happens to their hockey, especially because between him and Margot, he is the most rational of the two. Because Margot is dead set in war and everything. It's because Margot kind of has a temper. Like, she just kind of does what she wants to. It's kind of screwed around ramifications. You know, Elliot's trying to do the whole thing of trying to be more mature, trying to be more grown up because, I mean, granted, it's kind of all been enforced and thrust upon him because it's kind of like, well, he doesn't have much of a choice being a dad and everything now, so. But by the end of the episode, the surgery went, well, the exorcism or whatever, went through without it, well, not without a hitch, because Katie brings up, it's like, yeah, it was successful, but there was some complications. So, my thoughts on the complications. One, she's in a situation where she can never have that baby. I mean, have a baby ever again, just because of what it did. Maybe it tried to claw its way and keep inside of her. Or the fact is that it's not dead, that even though it was prematurely born, that it's still alive. I mean, it is technically a demigod, and I feel like even with an exorcism, especially because the thing is already so entangled with her soul that it can't be that easy to deal with. Not unless that's the thing too, like the shade that, Martin brought up before, kind of like the lighter side, the more human side of your soul, like the one that kind of holds your humanity and stuff. Not less when it came out, it ripped that apart too. So, because it is entangled with her soul, not less it took her soul with it, and she's like, what the hell? She's like, so, Julia, you kind of don't have a soul anymore. Wait, what? Yeah, it kind of took your soul when it died. It kind of took your soul with it, so we don't know where it is. So, a very good episode, and I'm very interested to see where everything goes from here. Where Fillory stands, where Elliot stands. Because the only two ruling kings that they've ever really had, I mean, rulers they've had right now are Elliot and Margot, because Q's kind of been dealing with this whole Alice situation, so he hasn't necessarily been around to be, a king, and Alice is gone. And then, so, find out more about this baby situation, especially, like I said, since they no longer have the Haxan vaccine, and I'm sure Diane, or Diana, whichever one it was, will be bringing that up to him, so obviously he's going to be coming after Julia, at least. I think he's going to at least take an interest to see what Julia's been up to. I mean, that really comes down to whether Diana ever brings up the fact is, I mean, I don't know if she would, because if she did, all that would do is probably bring up the question of, like, how many other children did he father? And I'm sure that's a question that she would like to avoid. So, also, what's up with this whole Mayakovsky situation? Because obviously Penny was originally there in the library looking for a particular book for him. So, storing up magic, I'm wondering how that's going to go. We're going to go back to that. I'm also curious if that Emily storyline is going to pop back up either, just because it's like, well, obviously her and Q are working together, but I'm like wondering, did this whole Mayakovsky situation with her, like making him look like Mayakovsky, like spring up any old feelings to kind of get something else started? I'm curious. I mean, we just kind of have to wait and see. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, enjoy it. Good day and good